Hey everybody, welcome to the Mountain Gamer, and welcome to this recap of Aeon's End Legacy Chapter 4, A Friend in Danger. Let's get into it right now with the chapter introduction. So let me put that up on screen for you here. So Chapter 4, Introduction. Rumors have spread that other breach mages survived the destruction of Gravehold. To survive, we need their help, and they need ours. We must find them and regroup, Brahma explains. Brahma and Mist leave on a scouting trip in search of these survivors, placing you in charge of New Gravehold's safety. You are alone at night, listening to the ring of metal from Malastar's forge, when a bloodied Mist staggers back into camp. As she reaches the edge, she stumbles to the ground. Malastar helps you move her to her cabin, laying her on a cot. "Where is Brahma?" he asks. Mist speaks weakly. "We were ambushed by a nameless that can enter your mind. The spores encased Brahma before we could react." Mist murmurs, "Do not blame her. She is a prisoner to that beast. You must free her before she is lost to us forever." "Go," Malastar speaks softly. "I'll take care of Mist. Go save our general." Boom. So that's the setup. Pretty grim stuff going on. So then we open this nice little envelope here, and inside we find the fungal mesh. Now this thing has a little story on the back, and let's look at that right now if you're interested. When our scouts first encountered the fungal mesh, they were unprepared for what it could do. The aftermath was bloody, with the mesh having overtaken the minds of several of our scouts, forcing them to turn on each other. After that, it was decided the scouts would keep a safe distance, watching the fungal mesh from afar. The fungal mesh is more powerful than Brahma estimated, and now she has fallen under the spell of the beast. It must be stopped if we are to have any hope of a new life on the surface. Setup, none. So this kind of tells you what's going to be going on with the fungal mesh. I'll get to that shortly. Now, when we did open that, the rules also told us to go get some of these tokens here. These are your basic Nemesis tokens that you will be using in, probably every new scenario going forward. And when that was done, we also got to go get some special cards for the fungal mesh. So 3 level 3 cards, 3 level 2 cards, and 3 level 1 cards. And we added those to our deck of basic Nemesis cards. I think there's like 18 in there now. That's maybe more than in a usual game. So anyway, you'll shuffle these in, Act 1, 2, 3, create the Nemesis deck. I'll just leave them like this for now because I want to keep my boys separated when I put them back in the box. So this right here is the supply that we were dealing with in this particular scenario. I'll zoom in on that. You can have a look at that. So quickly here we have for 3 ether, gain 2 ether or silence a minion. That came in handy. For 4 here, we had gain 2, and if you have 2 or more prepped spells, gain an additional ether. That didn't work out so well. So, yeah. For 6, Gilded Marble, gain 3. Turns out we didn't really buy those. As soon as we had enough money, we'd go for spells, but I'll get to that later. For 3, we have spells here. Warping Haze, cast, deal 2 damage. If you have 2 or more other prepped spells, deal 1 additional damage. This also didn't work out the way we thought. For 4 here, Force Transfusion, deal 3 damage. If you have 3 or more charges, gain 1 charge. This came in super duper handy. I love this card. I don't think it'll ever leave. Over here for 5, Arcane Salvo. It's a deal 4, but it also says, while prepped, once per turn, during your main phase, you may place a relic you played this turn or a relic in your discard pile on top of your deck. Did not happen once. For 6 here, Starfire Frenzy, deal 4 damage. Fine, you may discard a spell in hand. If you do, deal 1 additional damage and gain a charge. Seems nice, but because of the way this thing is made, it didn't really happen, and I'll get to the Nemesis very quickly. And our 2 relics here at the bottom, Geophage, gain 1 ether, and you may destroy a gem in hand. My character ended up doing that a lot. Well, 3-4 times at least. And for 4 here, Neural Wreath, and we really like this one. Focus any player's breach, period. Any player may prep a spell in hand. So basically, you could affect 2 players with that. Very good card. So let's get into the Nemesis right now. So this lovely piece of work here starts with 70 health, which is a lot. At Unleash, he does Fungal Mesh gains 1 Nemesis token, which is, again, one of these things. Now, additional rules. Essentially what's going to happen is, at the end of a Nemesis turn, if he's got 2 tokens, you're going to go through this list. And then you'll remove 2 tokens until he has less than 2, right? So if you have only, You know, if you've got 3 tokens, he'll do this whole thing once. You'll remove the tokens, that's all. But if you had 4, well, you'll do it once, remove 2 tokens, do it again, remove 2 tokens. That's how that works. So let's see what this actually does, okay? If there are no prepped spells, Gravehold suffers 4. So you look around the table, oh crap, nobody's got any prepped spells, Gravehold suffers 4. Boom, you're done. Okay, fine. If there is at least 1 prepped spell around the table, any player casts a prepped spell. The damage that spell deals must be dealt to Gravehold or any player instead of a minion or the Nemesis. So this means, like, if, let's say, the only spell that was prepped is like a 4 damage spell, well, somebody's going to take 4 damage, or Gravehold is going to take 4 damage, which is a bummer. And now it says, if a spell that costs 0 was cast this way, destroy it. So it's a good idea to keep these sparks around, because when they fire off, they'll only deal 1 damage to a player or to Gravehold. But on the downside, it will get destroyed, so it'll never come back, right? So there's only so many times that you can do this. But our strategy to try and suffer this was to hold on to these as much as we can, in the sense that, you know, we didn't destroy any of these cards. But even if we wanted to, we have no powers in the game so far that lets us destroy spells. We only have this relic here that lets us destroy gems. But anyways, just so, you know, for you fans out there of thinning your deck, yeah, we couldn't even do that. But anyway, we decided to hold on to these because when that effect triggered, well then, it was a good idea to have that plugged into one of your breaches. So, straightforward, but potentially very deadly. And it did happen a few times where we had bigger spells, like 3 or 4 value spells shoot off. And then it's like, okay, do we give it to Gravehold or do we give it to players? I think it was 50-50, honestly. It was very much like, okay, how low is Gravehold this turn? How low is, you know, this character or this character? So we ended up splitting the load, around the table. Now, one thing that was very annoying with this scenario is very early in the game, one of these specific Nemesis cards here, it's one, yeah, this guy, oh man, we hate this guy. I mean, look at this, okay? This is a 6 health minion, so not very hard to beat, but I mean, if he comes out on the first or second or, you know, early in the game, it's tough to get 6 attacks right away. So he ended up staying for, I don't know, man, for at least like 5-6 turns for a long time. And what he does is this: any player discards 2 gems. Oh, thanks. So less money to buy spells and to buy money. Gain a charge, which was nice, but suffer 2 damage, which is bad. So this thing stayed around way too long, and what it did is it stopped us from buying spells and from buying gems. It just stopped us. It like kneecapped us, and we couldn't buy anything. And it took way too long to take this guy down. I think one of the mistakes we made in this particular game was we played it like a regular deck builder where, you know, it's like, okay, your first turns, usually you try to build up some money so that later you can go buy, you know, attack. But I think we should have done this thing in reverse. Like right away, we should have gone for those really cheap spells. You know, we should go for this right away instead of going for this. But more on the subject of this, okay? Silence a minion. This turned out to be a lifesaver because there are some really mean guys in here that cause Gravehold a lot of damage and that also cause the Nemesis to unleash, right? So we ended up using these silence tokens. If you saw that in the previous video I did, these silence tokens, basically you'll play a card that says silence a minion, so right away you'll just go boom. Which means that next time it's the Nemesis turn, instead of activating the persistent ability, you just remove this. So it gives you like one Nemesis turn where, you know, one card won't do the bad thing that it's supposed to do. But really, this saved our butts. We love this. We're going to keep doing this forever, as long as the game lets us do it. So this guy was a problem. And what happened very quickly was that Gravehold got rammed. It was just horrible. At one point, I think in the middle of Act 2, Gravehold was at 10 life. And this was like the middle of the second act. Gravehold kept taking damage, and I'm trying to figure out what did this. I mean, we kind of did this to ourselves, right? Because when you unleash and this thing goes forward, at first you're like, okay, let's give Gravehold 1 or 2 damage, right? Let's look at some of these cards here. So see, unleash twice, And again, the prepper with the most prep spells suffers 4. This hurts us. Unleash 3 times. That's just horrible. Unleash twice. And that's just not even counting those regular Nemesis cards that have Unleash and Unleash twice written all over them, right? So Act 1, Unleash twice. This. We have this guy, 7 life. Gravehold suffers 2 damage. That's a pain. Any player suffers 2 damage. And shields. Again, these damn shields. If you remember that. He's got 3 shields, so every attack just takes care of one of those shields. So they're longer to beat, right? This makes me suffer some crap. Gravehold suffers 3 again. I suffer 3. A Caustic Soldier for 12. And a lot of these are, bugs that were smaller in previous scenarios, but that have evolved over time by the use of these evolve stickers. So they're pretty big. I mean, for Act 2, 12, it's pretty, that's a fat bug to squash. See, compared to this one, it's 7, but eventually it will evolve so much, something's going to hatch out of there. Probably, 12 strength again or something. Unleash twice again. Unleash 3 times. I mean, we're at Act 3 here, but you get the gist. So there was a lot of unleashing going on. So very quickly, things spiraled out of control. And we were just, we were feeling like, okay, I mean, are we going to have to cheat or something? Are we going to have to bring out Malistar's Gift, which, again, you're not supposed to use unless you fail the scenario. Malistar's Gift is this thing here. Any player gains 5 and Gravehold gains 5. But you only use this if you've lost the scenario. But at one point, we were like, okay, screw it. Like, let's actually just bring this thing out and use it. But we said, you know what? No. Let's try and actually beat this thing. And that's when things started going right for us. We cleared out a whole bunch of minions, but this thing was still, like I said, this I think was at 49 and this was at 10. But we had gotten rid of a lot of minions. So then what started to happen is I began using my power. Okay, my Plaster Caster. Gravehold gains 5 life. So I started investing in charges, but that can be very time consuming if you've played the game before because it is 2 ether. It takes a while. But what I did was I bought me some cheap spells, this one in particular. And look at this guy here. Okay, deal 3, which is in itself not bad. And if you have 3 or more charges, gain a charge. So what would happen is I would basically pay to get 3. And then every time this would fire off, I would get 1 more. But now I had like 3-4 of these in my deck. So at a certain point, I had a system going where every time it came back to my turn, I would like shoot off 2 of those, giving me 2 extra spells. So very quickly, I don't know, maybe over the course of 3-4 turns, we were healing Gravehold, and by the end of the game, I don't remember, I think Gravehold was at 15 or something, and it was very much like a push and pull situation. Like I would heal Gravehold 5, but then some minion or the fungal mesh would kind of kill it back down by 3 or 4. So I was constantly bringing it back up, and the game was bringing it back down, and it was like so it was very much up and down and up and down. But I figured out that this was my job. I think in this game we started specializing late mid-game. Like I decided, okay, screw it. I'm gonna be the healer. That's all I'm gonna do. Okay, I'm gonna buy charges, buy some of these spells, and also buy some of that to destroy useless gems. So I'm going to be the guy who's got a really thin deck, and I'm going to be putting in charges, shooting off these things, healing. Putting in charges, shooting off these things, healing. That's all I'm going to do. And that saved us. And at the same time, my wife started doing her mouth to mouth, okay? So she stopped buying spells, and the only thing she did in the last, the last third of the game was just load up this thing to give someone back 3 life. Because again, when the fungal mesh fires off, you can decide to hit Gravehold or any player. So then we were like, okay, every time one of those spells goes off, let's hit someone in the face. But my wife is going to keep going bing, bing. So this worked out by specializing. And as for my friend Snow, well, he never used this thing here. Cast any player's prepped spell without discarding it. That spell deals 1 additional damage. That's a cute ability, but it's way too long to charge up to do, and it's not worth investing in that. So he became the guy who just bought huge spells and would fire them off every once in a while. So he became like the hitter. I became partially hitter and a healer, and my wife became just, well, I say healer of Gravehold, and my wife became like the doctor who would heal us. And that's the way we won. If we had not started specializing, like really specializing, we would have lost horribly. One of the other ways that we survived this thing was by letting some of the basic Nemesis cards evolve. Okay, so let's say, okay, a card like this, which potentially does one of two things. Either you let it evolve, or unleash twice, which is bad, and Gravehold suffers too, which is bad. But then you're like, yeah, but what does evolve do? Chattery teeth and all that. Yeah, but you know what? Screw it. Because if we let the game do this, it's going to be very bad for us right now, because Gravehold is so low, right? And there's no way you want to spend 6 at Act 1, because you probably don't even have $6, right? But if you do, you want to get some spells or some gems or whatever. So we're like, it's way too expensive, and this is way too bad, so let's just let it evolve. But then the discussion is, but if we let it evolve, what if it puts something into the game right now that's horrible, like a big beast? But we found out that that's not the mechanic, and now that's too bad. It's like looking, behind the curtain type of thing. But whenever we had one of those and we let it evolve, the game just gave us a little bit of story to read, and then they would say, get this out of the game forever and replace this with a similar yet worse version of this, but in the Nemesis discard pile, which means you're not going to be dealing with it now. You're going to be dealing with it in another game, right? So I think this happened like 5 times. We would see one of these cards come up, and then we were like, okay, screw it. Let's not pay the money to get rid of it. And let's not let it trigger. Let's just make it evolve and deal with it in a further game. So that was one of the ways that we ended up surviving this particular chapter. So that was that. So overall, it was a very, very tight game. It ended very tight, and it felt like right from the get-go, we were getting our butts handed to us right from the get-go. And then things got worse and 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 worse. And I think by the end of the game, there were like, I think four Nemesis cards left. Like, we could have lost the game just by running out the deck. Okay, so it was a long game, but it was very, we were out of breath. It was very, very intense. Now, when it was all said and done, the game gave us some bonuses, of course, and let's get into those right now. The first thing the game did was give us this nice strip here, and this is basically abilities that you'll be adding to your personalized starter cards, right? So like before, we only had, let's say, the top part here, but now we could do and put a sticker here. So this card does 2 things. So let's just look at the ones that we didn't take. So let's zoom in here and just see what they do. So if you had a spell, you could pick a card that says, whatever your spell does, and then any ally may discard a spell in hand. If they do, deal 2 additional damage. Cool, but we didn't take it. And then yada yada yada, and reveal the top card of your deck. You may destroy it. Now this is nice, but we're like, this is kind of gambling, right? Because if you reveal a card and it's not something you want to destroy, this is kind of wasted. So this might never work. It'll probably work sometimes, but it might never work. So, well, we took that one, but this one says yada yada yada, and gain a charge, which again is nice. Now, the only character that we had with a spell was my friend Snow here. So his actual card said, cast, deal 1 damage. If your discard pile contains 4 or more other cards, deal 2 additional damage. He uses that a lot. Like, he'll wait until he has a lot of cards in his discard pile, and then he'll load this thing up or prep this thing up. And when he fires, 2 additional damage. Nice. And then it's like, let's just take something that will always work. So, and you gain 1 ether. Now you might say, well, why don't you take this? A charge is worth 2 ether. Yes, but a charge only does a charge. And if you remember correctly, his ability isn't all that great. So I don't feel like he's going to be using charges that much. He would much rather get an extra ether to sometimes get rid of these, these horrible cards that are worth, so much. So that was his thinking. Now, if you had a gem on your specific starter card, and that's what me and my wife have, you could take from, these 4. So let's look at this one here. So whatever your gem does, and you may place a different gem you played this turn on top of your deck. So basically any other gem than your starter card gem. We didn't really see, I mean, I know why you would do this, you know, because you want to get money on top of your deck and then play it again. Yeah, but I mean, it does, yeah, we didn't care really that much about that one. So let's look at the bottom one here. So do whatever your gem does and reveal the top card of the turn order deck. You may place that card on the bottom of the turn order deck. So basically you get to see what's coming and you have some control over it. Yes, but we like this better. So my guy does gain 1, and if you have 3 or more open breaches, gain 1 life. This actually works out for me very well. I used that maybe 4 or 5 times. So I picked, and if you have 1 charge or less, gain a charge. Because we realized that I fired off my special ability so much to heal Gravehold that if I have this, I'm kind of getting, you know, a jump start on the whole loading up of the charges to heal Gravehold situation. So I like this. So I took this. As far as my wife goes, she had Sneak Attack here. Gain 1. You may cast one of your prepped spells that cost 4 or less. Again, she uses that a lot. And if Gravehold has 20 or less life, Gravehold gains 1 life. I wasn't sure this was necessary because I was the guy who healed Gravehold, but she was like, you know what, this happens a lot, so yeah, why not? So she took that. Last but not least, the game made us open a whole envelope, and it had 4 stickers, only 1 remains. But essentially what this is you're going to be ripping off this strip here and replacing the strip that you had before. And the game asks you to specialize. So you either specialize in ether or in spells. Well, I actually wrote it down quickly here. When you specialize in ether, if you combine your starting deck and your hand, you're going to have $8 and 1 attack. And if you do the spell specialization, you'll have $6 and 3 attack. So this is what it looks like here, okay? Like my wife is more of a ether specialization. So starting hand is her special card and 4 crystal. But me, I'm more of a spell guy now. So I've got 3 crystal, my card, 3 crystal and a spark. So see, she doesn't have a spark, but she has more crystals. I have 3 crystals and a spark. And in the deck, she has 4 crystal and 1 spark. And I have 3 crystals and 2 sparks. So as I said again, so she's got like $8 in her deck and 1 attack. I have $6 and 3 attack. So we had to make this choice, and this also changes the setup of how your breaches are going to be. So the more money you have, the more your breaches are set back, because they're like, well, you got more money, you can now spend money to bring them forward. And the contrary is here with the spells. So they're easier to open because you have less money. So we decided I was going to be more of a spell guy, my wife was going to be more of an ether person, and Snow here is going to be more of a spell guy as well, because as we've seen before, he can load 2 spells in his number 1 breach, so it was a good idea for him to have more spells. And then, as always, the game gave us some new supply cards, and we had to pick 2 and swap them out with 2. Alright, so they gave us 2 gems, a spell, and a relic. Let's look at these. So for 5, the Refined Aluminium, gain 2 ether, any ally draws a card. We liked that, but we found it a bit expensive. The other one here for 4, Phased Portalite, Phased Portalite, gain 2 ether. If your number 3 breach is opened, gain an additional ether. We actually considered me taking that because I have a special ability that focuses my number 3 breach rather quickly, so we thought this might be good. But we opted not to take it because of these 2 here down here. So the Pyrogeist, a 6 spell. Now we already have one of those, but this one says, okay, when you prep this, deal 1 damage, which doesn't seem like a big deal. But remember, we have these shield tokens now. So just the act of prepping this gets rid of a shield token on one of those minions. So we found that to be nice. And then it says cast, deal 1 damage, period, deal 2 damage. Which means when you cast it, you can split this into 2 different attacks, which again is nice against shields. So we really, this got us really excited. And at the bottom here, very small, it says, effects that modify damage affect both instances of damage this spell deals when cast. So we understood that as saying, if you're shooting this thing off from, let's say, your number 4 breach that adds +1 damage, essentially deal 1 damage, +1, deal 2 damage, +1. So we thought this thing was very good for taking out shields, and it could also potentially do, you know, a decent amount of damage. So I mean, we took that for sure. And then a relic for 6, very expensive for a relic, but gain 2 charges, nice. Silence a minion, very, very nice, because we do love these silence tokens. So yeah, we took these 2 guys. Now, we still had to replace 2 cards from the supply, and let's see how we did that. So what we ended up doing, and this is using the new rules that say that you don't have to stick to this ratio, right? You can mix it up a little bit more. So what happened is now we took away one of these gems and one of these spells. So now essentially by bringing in these 2, okay, let's get rid of these. Now our setup is going to be 2 gems. It's going to be 4 spells, which was always that, but it's going to be 3 relics. So this is the new setup. So we can silence minions here, gain charges, and this, we're keeping this forever because this helped me so much to heal Gravehold. So we're keeping that. This is our like default cheap spell, so we're keeping that too. This guy's going to be helping us, you know, take out these shield tokens. We really like this setup. We hope this is going to be good for the next game. If we had this for this particular game, things would have been different. Well, I mean, we still, you know, probably would have won, but maybe easier or more easily. But for now, this is our setup. We're pretty happy with that. So that's it, everybody. Again, as I said, a very exciting game, but very dark and gloomy for a very long time. We thought we were going to lose, but like seriously going to lose. We even considered cheating with this thing, but we did not. Very proud of us for not cheating. Hooray, being honest, I guess. So yeah, so very excited to play the next one, Chapter 5, probably in a week's time. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to click like and all that jazz. And again, I keep asking this and nobody seems to be answering me. Leave comments. Just leave comments to tell me if there's something in here that you would like to see, or if there's a point that I'm not addressing enough, or if I'm, you know, I don't know, leaning too much into one way or another or whatever. So please let me know what you think, because these videos are for you. So there you go. Thanks for watching, and I will see all of you guys on the next one. And if you want some more videos, YouTube thinks you might like the one on the left. I personally think you might enjoy the one on the right. And if you want to make sure to never miss any of my videos, I would ask you to click the middle button here to, of course, subscribe.
How strong is the roaring wind in Denver? Strong enough to lift porta-potties and send them into the air.